And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Well, Johnny, it's that time of the week. Let's see who's on Gavin Newsom's podcast. Still sounds like porno.
Well, that fits his branding.
This is Gavin Newsom. And this is Beto O'Rourke.
Beto?
Well, those are two peas in a pod.
I thought we were done with Beto.
How many times has he lost in a row?
Enough times where you can officially declare him a gadfly.
He was just on TV swearing up a storm recently. Did you see that?
I did not.
He takes after Gavin in that way, too.
Last time I remember seeing anything relevant with Beto, it's when Biden was in Texas and Beto took him to Whataburger.
Did they park in the blue spot?
I don't even think Biden got the number 4 with Texas toast.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this next one's a twofer because we're going to Randy's neighborhood, and it's an Ed Lascos edition.
I've got 2 different reports on the same crazy story. It takes place in Van Nuys, California, where in a neighborhood, a man has a train horn, and he's blasting it constantly. And apparently, there's nothing the LAPD can do about it.
And it's not a horn in his car, just to be clear. He has horns that are put up on his house, and he blares them at night all of the time.
That is true. When you have a story like this, there's only one man you can get to cover it correctly, and that's Fox 11's Ed Lascos.
Enough already.
Could you imagine living next to that?
No.
Chaos and event.
I mean, that's the horn of an actual train to make sure that you don't get run over by one.
But there's no train tracks because there's no train.
Chaos in a Van Nuys neighborhood. One man's deafening siren and bizarre behavior has residents there living in fear. They tell us that police are called daily, but why is this guy still acting like a neighbor from hell?
Good one, Marla.
Let's go live to Fox 11's Ed Lascos with more tonight. That's the question, Ed. Why?
Yeah, why? All the neighbors are saying we just want it to end already. I'll tell you, it's been quiet here so far. No sound, that piercing horn.
Oh, yeah, this guy only does it when no one's looking. So if the cops come, he doesn't do the horn. If he sees the Fox 11 van, he doesn't do the horn. But if it's just his neighbors there, honk, honk, honk.
And I guess the video that they take of it isn't good enough.
Horn blasting through, rocketing through the neighborhood. The neighbors say over the last weekend, though, it's really going almost nonstop. They say they need to have something done about it. You might be asking yourself, it can't be that bad? Well, listen for yourself. It sounds more like a Union Pacific freight blasting through this neighborhood.
Well, if it was, I'm sure they'd rob that too.
It's such a horrific sound. I mean, it's such a sound that it's a piercing sound.
It's a blasting alarm that's echoing several blocks around, rattling windows, even forcing neighbors to post these signs.
You see signs like this with lightning bolts come. People are like, oh, my ears, you know.
There's signs all around. If you hear the horn, call the cops. But then the cops come out and we didn't hear the horn. There's nothing we could do.
Well, how often do they call the cops and the cops don't come out?
The sound of those air horns traced back to this house here on Peach Ave. See them up there? The house owned by a man the neighbors call the hornblower.
We may have, and I have no scientific basis behind this. I'm not a researcher. This is just anecdotal. I think the city of Los Angeles has the highest concentration of crazy people in the world.
Oh, without a doubt.
among other things.
And all of a sudden, this nut, first he turns on his house alarm, and he has that gone on and on and on. And then periodically, he has the horn.
Could you imagine living there?
There's already a lot of noise pollution if you live in Van Nuys, with all the air traffic that's going out of the Van Nuys airport or going into Burbank. You hear all of it. To add this, on top of that, with all the leaf blowers that are supposed to be illegal, nobody gets a good night's sleep in Van Nuys.
You make dinner, you toss your salad, you put the plates and the forks and the knives and everything else, the spoons on the table. The whole family's getting ready to enjoy a dinner. You have nice and peace and quiet. Hey, turn the TV off so we can enjoy each other's conversation. And then that starts.
The horns have been blasting now for the last several months. Usually it's
months of this?
Months.
They should have called Fox 11 earlier.
Usually it's a 2-minute blast followed by a few seconds of
2 minutes of that constantly throughout the night.
How crazy do you have to be to think that that's necessary?
Usually it's a 2-minute blast followed by a few seconds of silence, and then it starts up again over and over and over.
And it's so friggin' loud.
These poor people. They're paying. You don't know how much it costs to live in the valley these days. This is not fair.
Friggin' loud.
You bet they've called LAPD. Officers out here several times, but so far, no citations. And
yeah, my brother, he works at night. He goes to bed, so he's trying to sleep, and this idiot's over here. And literally, it goes on for sometimes hours.
And
this is going to be another situation where if the police can't do anything about it, this neighborhood's going to get all vigilante.
It's going to happen.
And if you think those loud horns are enough already, think again.
We love Ed.
He's the best. Criminally underused. He needs to be on every day.
Listen to the hornblower here yelling, going off, threatening an Uber driver.
Come closer. How close are you?
Oh, yeah, criminal threats are legal, so that's fine.
It's L.A. Anything goes.
I'm going to find you. One of these days, I'm going to get you when you're not expecting.
One of these days, I'm going to get you when you're not expecting.
Doesn't that sound like a textbook criminal threat?
Yeah, but this is L.A. Even with Hockman, this is L.A.
But if you were to go to school for criminal justice and you're reading the textbook and they need an example of a criminal threat, that would be it.
You'll see him out in the yard, at midnight with a light on his forehead, working in the yard, cutting the tree in the dark.
Okay, this guy is completely insane.
That sounds like perfectly sane behavior.
I mean, God, crazy.
He's a real nut.
Even Ed was at a loss for words.
I mean, God, crazy.
It's hard to get him to break character.
I mean, God, crazy.
He's a real nut.
Now, I'll tell you just can't make this kind of stuff up. Part of the other story goes,
this is a very disposable business that people like Ed are in, that Marla's in, that we're in. You go through so many stories, it's hard for one to stay in your head for a long time. This one's so weird, you'll never forget it.
It's bizarre.
Part of the other story goes on. This fella's real name is Gary. Seemingly did not want to talk, did not come to the door, may not have been home, doesn't want to answer any questions. And then you have the neighbors, and they're concerned because you saw how he became somewhat aggressive to that Uber driver about a week ago, so they're worried it could escalate into violence.
It usually does. Now, here's what's interesting. Fox 11 was there, and this guy didn't want to talk. An hour later, ABC 7 was there, and he did want to talk.
I can only imagine what this guy had to say.
Well, that sounds like a train horn, but it's coming from a Van Nuys house, and neighbors say they've had enough. The piercing siren has been going on for months, and now residents are pleading with police for their help. Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes live in Van Nuys, where he spoke with the man behind that horn. Rob?
Rob Hayes got this guy on camera.
Lucky him.
Yeah, right now the neighborhood is quiet, but folks who live around here say around this time of the day, they are usually bracing for a window-rattling noise ordinance violation, and they don't understand why the guy who is behind it all has not been ticketed.
Yeah, seriously, what the hell?
Ticketed? They should haul this guy's ass downtown.
It's a block packed with humble, reserved homes, and one that is considerably not humble nor reserved. It's a house that sounds more like a train station, turning this block of Peach Street in Van Nuys into Screech Street.
Oh, no.
You know, hearing that train horn, I think Joe Biden's going to jump on the Amtrak.
Rob Hayes, I know this is a funnier story than some of the stuff that people have to cover in the local news, but this is criminal punetry.
Peach Street in Van Nuys into Screech Street in Van Nuys.
That's embarrassing. This is the number one market. Come on. Do better.
Makes the windows rumble.
This neighbor didn't want her face shown, but felt it was important to get the story out. Neighbors here are frustrated with the blaring horn that shatters the silence here most afternoons for months now.
Wait, he also has one of those sirens?
This guy must spend all of his money on objects that make loud noises.
He puts his alarm on, his house alarm, and has that running. And then he uses the horn. And he blows it for, like 30 seconds. And then it'll stop, and in a few minutes he does it again.
Where else does this happen but the city of Los Angeles?
And they act like their hands are tied and there's nothing they can do about it.
And it's over and over and over again.
I will give them credit. Great editing on this story.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
This is the neighbor who likes to toot his own horn.
Okay, I'll give him that one.
If I were in their shoe, I'd complain too.
Oh, what?
If I was in their shoe, I'd complain too.
If I were in their...
Hey, maybe he could be mayor.
If I were in their shoe, I'd complain too. It is loud. It is disturbing.
Gary Boyadzian says he has a long-running beef with LAPD's Van Nuys division. The loud siren...
It's train horns, actually.
Okay, the train horns are his way, he says, of getting LAPD's attention.
But then they come out and they don't give him a ticket.
Yeah, you're not getting their attention. You're getting the attention of all your neighbors.
I need help. I don't know how else to cry out for it. That's why I'm setting the sirens.
And is that fair to the neighbors?
So wait, he's setting off the sirens because he desperately needs someone to take him to the loony bin?
On that point, we're in agreement.
And is that fair to the neighbors, you think?
It's not. I would complain too if I was them.
Well, why do you do it?
I'm crying out for help.
Did you hear him the first time?
You know, it's not often where an insane person tells you they're insane.
At what point do the guys with the white coats and the straitjacket take this guy away?
We don't have those anymore. You can't fund those with Medicare dollars, so we have to have community-based organizations.
The people who live on the block have posted signs urging others to call the police when the horns are blaring. But neighbors say officers have told them they need to hear the noise themselves in order to cite Boyadzian.
So can you have an LAPD officer, I don't know, sit around in that neighborhood in an unmarked car for like 20 minutes?
This is the one instance where you want a gang member in your neighborhood. Because if you had a gang member living on your block, this would last exactly one day before this guy was dumped in Lake Mead.
He does it, then he stops, and by the time they get out here 40 minutes later, they can't do anything. They've been out here 3 days in a row.
Also, that's the response time, huh? 40 minutes?
They've been out here 3 days in a row.
And so...
How long does it take to bleed out from a gunshot wound? I'm going to guess less than 40 minutes.
And so the frustration grows. The folks around here wishing LAPD would literally grab this case by the horns.
This is the worst city in the country. I don't live far from this, and I am ready to get the F out.
Well, it's funny because there are obvious problems that have an easy fix, but we just live in a place where nothing's fixable. You just can't fix it.
Now, we reached out to LAPD's Van Nuys division today several times, have not gotten any answers.
They put you on hold, too?
City Council member Imelda Padilla represents this neighborhood. Her staff today said they're unaware of the problem.
Imelda's unaware of most things.
How can they be unaware of it? It's at what decimal?
Reporting live in Van Nuys, Rob Hayes, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Rob, this is weird, frankly. And what he says...
Even Mark Brown, a seasoned veteran, if there ever was one, of the L.A. news scene, is dumbfounded.
Well, that's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, Rob, this is weird, frankly. And what he says he needs help, but what does he say? Yeah, what does he say he needs help with?
He just has a beef with LAPD. That's what he tells us. A long-standing beef goes back to 2013.
It's been going on for 12 years?
Well, apparently it's a big beef.
Yeah. I'm not a psychologist, so I couldn't really analyze this guy.
Okay.
All right. Well, maybe someone with LAPD sees this and they can come together and...
You know what this sound is right here?
Guy.
Okay.
That's Mark Brown thinking he's got to move out, too.
I think we all are. Just got a text message from a friend who responded to the story that we just did. Here's what he had to say. Rent control breeds these types of crazy people that you're talking about on the air. I remember so many people like that in West Hollywood. They were all rent control people who have been there since the 80s. Same thing in New York City. I have friends who live next to total psychopaths who would do crazy stuff because they hole up in their rent control apartment and never let anyone in because they don't want the landlord to see the squalor and kick them out.
That definitely does happen. This was a single-family neighborhood, though.
It still could be a rental. Let's go to Stan in Orange. Stan, hello.
Yeah, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Wang. Yeah, I'm a retired policeman, 40 years in the industry, but I've been retired about 15 years. I don't know all the details of this situation because I kind of cut the tail end of it, but I don't understand why the cops say they can't do anything. You can always write a report, refer it to the DA, but then again, you're dealing with L.A. County, I would imagine. But a citizen can always make if it's a misdemeanor, it's 415 of the penal code. A citizen can always make a citizen's arrest of the guy. And then, in a situation like this, you at minimum take a report, maybe give the violator a citation to appear in court, and then you got to seize the evidence. So if the horns and the sirens, you seize the evidence and you book it in for when the case goes to trial, and then problem solved. So there's maybe LAPD has some weird policies, which is probably true, and they don't want people, or they don't want the coppers, pushing certain limits or whatever. I don't know, but that'd be my solution. Have this complain and make a citizen's arrest, give the guy a ticket.
Well, hopefully the cops are listening. We're late for a break, but thank you for the call, sir. Later on tonight, my Angels are going for the season sweep of the Dodgers in Anaheim. I bet you a lot of Dodger fans didn't think that was going to happen.
You realize you just cursed your team, right?
Well, I was there when they beat him in Los Angeles, and I've been looking at the videos on social media of all the Dodger fans going to Anaheim to watch their team play. Hey, Dodger fans, here's the deal. In your house, you could do whatever you want. When you come to Anaheim, to Angel Stadium, why don't you class it up a little bit? Especially the women. How many videos did I see today of women fighting with one another in the stands?
That's why people go to baseball games, John.
You really think if you throw a punch at some other lady, it's going to help your team score more runs than the Angels?
I guess you got to take your victories where you can get them since you're still in fourth place.
Hey, we've had a bad year. We've experienced that before. But we've won 5 in a row against the Dodgers.
Hey, at least you're not the West Sacramento A's.
That's true. And by the way, Dodger fans, I'll warn you with this. If you're thinking about going down to Anaheim tonight and causing any problems, if you have any outstanding warrants in Orange County, we will arrest you. Now, in Los Angeles, the mayor of L.A., Karen Bass, is openly bragging about the fact that the city of L.A., when they hear that there is an immigration raid going on somewhere, that they will warn people to get out of Dodge, which is something that they're not supposed to do. Sounds like obstruction of justice to me, but the mayor is openly acknowledging that that's exactly what the city of L.A. is doing.
You remember that city council meeting where Imelda Padilla asked the chief of police, Jim McDonnell, hey, when you know that ICE is coming, can you tell us so we can warn everyone? And he said, that'd be obstruction of justice, ma'am.
But now that's what the mayor's doing and talking about on television.
Also, in this interview on MSNBC, while Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles, her answers in this satellite interview might remind you of a different California mayor.
Joining us now is the mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen.
Okay, first of all, Matto, when's the last time you were in L.A.?
It sounds like it's been a while.
Not a lot that's great about L.A.
Joining us now is the mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass. Mayor Bass, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel.
My girl lives on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel.
Given what you have experienced in Los Angeles this summer, do you have any words of wisdom for your colleagues and peers in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, how much of a time difference was it between the first absolutely and the second absolutely, you wonder? 11 seconds.
She's fond of that word, too.
Tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel.
Given what you have experienced in Los Angeles this summer, do you have any words of wisdom for your colleagues and peers in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it sounds like she aspires to be Shang.
Honestly, I've covered a lot of Karen Bass. I've covered a lot of Shang. If I was given the opportunity right now, I'd rather Shang was the mayor of L.A. than Karen Bass.
Oh, me too. I never thought we'd get a mayor worse than Garcetti, and voila, there she is.
One of these days, we're going to have a slow news day, and that's going to be the collar topic for 3 hours.
I mean, I think that the outcry that you already saw building in Washington, D.C. is important. It is just so critical that we stand together as a nation and say that we are not going to allow our military to be misused like this. But
because these cities are so safe.
I'll tell you, I'm beginning to think, and we really learned this during the riots in downtown Los Angeles, when everyone kept saying there was no violence, there was no destruction of property. What they believe is they believe that there's a certain amount of violence that's just baked into the cake, and that's just part of life. And so why do you have a problem with it? What's your beef? And that's just how she sees the world. And I guess if Fidel Castro is your North Star, that explains it.
But I almost feel like now the experiment started in L.A., and now he's dosing Washington, D.C. Well, let's see. We'll try it for crime. Let's see. We'll do this here. Sending 100 FBI agents to do what? To patrol Washington, D.C.?
Might want to send them to L.A. City Hall.
Yeah, no kidding. How many of your colleagues are in trouble, Karen?
As you reported, we still have National Guard members here. At its height, there were 4,000. I would say about 100 maybe were actually used protecting 2 federal buildings. The rest of them were playing video games, bored to death, taken away from their families, their jobs, and their education. It's a complete misuse of the young men and women who sign up to serve our country.
It's described today in Washington in the way that it was described when it first happened in Los Angeles. It's being described, I think.
What's it like to watch a program that just doesn't have any sense of humor whatsoever and takes everything so seriously?
And that crowd just loves her. I don't get it.
It was described when it first happened in Los Angeles. It's being described, I think, across the board as a flex, as the president making a show of force, essentially against you, against local officials and state officials who are powerless. He revels in how powerless you are to stop him from what he's doing. But it seems to me it's also a flex against...
Whoa. They're powerless in that they refuse to do their job. They refuse to keep the city safe. They refuse to enforce the law. How often do we do stories about street takeovers where we hear about no arrests made, where the cops are told, don't arrest people for doing that? That's Karen Bass's worldview. That's the official policy in L.A. If she refuses to enforce the law, someone has to do it. Otherwise, what you end up with is lawlessness, which is what we have.
The public in your city and now the public in Washington, D.C., that there will be no locally accountable force that is the end-all be-all of local law.
That's the scary thing, is Karen Bass can't control if a different agency comes in here.
What's going to happen, Karen, if the law is enforced? What are you going to do to stop it?
That is the end-all be-all of local law enforcement. There will be an additional federal force that answers only to him.
By the way, is there ever any complaints when Gavin Newsom says he's taking over with the CHP? Like he's done in places like Oakland and Bakersfield?
He did it in San Francisco. He did it in Los Angeles when the trains were being robbed.
And they only answer to him. They don't answer to Karen Bass.
Nope.
And nothing anybody can do or say about it can stop it. Is that a fair interpretation, that this is essentially an intimidation tactic against not only local and state officials, but also the public?
Well, absolutely is.
It's like machine gun fire.
I haven't heard this many utterances of that term since my girl was still sitting in that mayor's chair.
You know, that's what a mayor do.
I miss her every day.
Well, absolutely is. But flex, dosing, I mean, to me, they're trying to see how much are we going to tolerate. Will the American public put up with this? Will they put up with that? It's interesting which mayors and which cities he's chosen to focus on. In Los Angeles, where you have crime down a 60-year low.
Oh, please.
We can't even go after the hornblower.
What planet is she living on where she's going to go out there and say, Los Angeles is safe, there's no crime here, we have everything under control. You had your own home broken into and your guns were stolen.
We're supposed to believe that crime is lower now than it was in Los Angeles in the 60s?
You know, I'm going to go a step further. Not only is she bad at her job, I think she's dumb.
Well, that's something we find out with a lot of members of Congress that run for local office, whether they be Karen Bass or Barbara Lee speaks for me.
Quite frankly.
Just because you've been a member of Congress and been able to get elected for over a decade doesn't mean you know anything.
One of two things is true. Either she's the dumbest person on planet Earth, or she thinks that we are the dumbest people on planet Earth to go on TV and say that and expect us to believe it.
Well, we're dumb enough to vote for her over Rick Caruso.
That's true.
By double digits.
In terms of homicides, homelessness is down.
Nope.
It's just, and the moon is made out of green cheese, right?
He points to homelessness and he points to crime in Washington, D.C. I don't know what's going on there, but I imagine that they are not suffering in the despair that he described in his press conference that in any way would warrant the use of federal officials in this manner.
You don't even know.
You know what's funny is I don't even think she's accurately talking to her people. Because of the Democrats I know in Los Angeles, they hate Trump. And as long as Democratic politicians sufficiently hate Trump, they're willing to vote for them. And they're willing to put up with bad government in spite of it. However, they acknowledge that the city has deteriorated. They acknowledge that homelessness is out of control, that crime is out of control. They can't buy insurance. They can't buy a ticket on the bullet train. They understand that all of that is true. And you're seeing a certain element of that play out with Washington, D.C., where you have people like the cast Morning Joe and other programs, people who live there, who understand that the city isn't safe, and they're willing to acknowledge that Washington, D.C. is not the safe city that the mayor is claiming that it is. But Karen Bass is just going full on, I don't know, alternate universe here, where she thinks there's no homeless, there's no crime, everything's running like a Swiss clock. And she's willing to make that claim on TV and expecting people to believe her.
Well, she has to make that claim. Otherwise, the only conclusion that the average person could come to with the way that Los Angeles looks after 3.5 years of Bass is that she's a complete failure.
Which she is.
When you say he's testing how much we'll tolerate, and you talked also about the protests being important. What do you think people can do that would matter? Can local officials establish any sort of limiting factor? What do you think is the most valuable pushback against things like this for people who object to it?
Well, I can tell you when they were doing the random snatching or kidnappings of people off of our streets.
Well, we're really not lowering the temperature in the room here, are we?
Random kidnappings, huh?
Our streets. When people get...
You know, that was the kind of rhetoric that led people to literally call LAPD and 911 saying, hey, somebody's being kidnapped. And then the LAPD had to go defend the ICE agents that were getting attacked by the community that said it was a kidnapping.
Well, in her defense, she is dumb, so she doesn't know what kind of fire she's playing with.
Our streets. When people gathered, they backed away on many occasions. And so in Los Angeles, we have a rapid...
Wait, are you actually saying that average citizens should intimidate federal law enforcement?
Well, Fidel Castro is the role model.
And so in Los Angeles, we have a rapid response network.
That is code for the nonprofits that get a whole bunch of taxpayer money to warn people that ICE is coming.
The obstruction of justice gang.
Where everybody is alerted. If you see masked men getting out of unmarked cars, let everybody in the area know.
Isn't that obstruction of justice?
Yep.
Not to interfere because that's a crime.
She just gets Southern on us?
A little bit.
Not to interfere.
Don't interfere.
She's starting to sound like that senator from Louisiana, Kennedy.
Not to interfere. Not to interfere because that's a crime, but to bear witness,
No, you're telling them to interfere, and that's what they were doing when they were throwing Molotov cocktails.
Among other objects.
But to bear witness, to film, to document, to speak up. And on many occasions, they would back away. Now, we did go to court. You know, we've had 2 successful policies from the court decisions that basically have put a temporary restraining order in place. And so I know that they are violating it, but we do have a court date in September, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court. We have to use every avenue possible, every tool in our toolkit. But what's most important that we cannot do, we cannot accept this. It has been a unifying factor in our city. Our city has stood strong. No part.
Really?
I'm telling you, prior to turning herself into the partisan obstruction of justice warrior, she was the mayor who was in Ghana when the fires wiped out Pacific Palisades. So she is leaning into this. She loves this because it gives her an opportunity in the Democratic city to be a foil for Donald Trump.
No part of our city says that this is okay. Everybody is repulsed by it, but we cannot allow our sense to be normalized. We cannot allow this to be normalized. We come accustomed to it, and then we grow to accept military being abused in this manner. That's why I think it's so important that this is still another phase of an experiment. We have to make sure that this experiment fails. Do you remember the day...
How?
We want to go back to how it used to be in Los Angeles, where criminals could do whatever they want to do and no one got arrested for anything.
Do you remember the day I came on your show and the president said that he had stopped the violence in Los Angeles and he was patting himself on the back? The National Guard hadn't even arrived. That's why I call it performance. It's an act. It is not legitimate in any way, shape, or form.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Madam Mayor, thank you very much for your time tonight. You've got an invaluable perspective on this, and I appreciate you being here.
Says the woman who lives in rural Massachusetts.
I'm not totally sure Rachel was listening to that interview.
Yeah. Well, she's smarter for it. It's the John Phillips Show.